Hello and welcome to Movie Guru. This will be my very first episode. I am starting this channel that will be based around every type of movie review and comparisons, pretty much every genre you can think of. But my personal favorite is horror, which will probably be most of my reviews. I'm your host Dylan. So for my very first episode, we are going to be discussing both the adaptations of Flowers in the Attic. I'm going to give you a little background story of the movie. So, it is about this family, and it's a rather dysfunctional setup. So, this mother has 4 children, and she lives with her husband. The family seemed to be picture perfect until her husband dies. The mother had nowhere else to go besides to her parents' home. She was estranged from her family years back, before she even had children. Her parents never wanted to see her again, but she had no other choice. The main antagonist of the film Flowers in the Attic was the grandmother, Olivia. She was a very stern, very overly religious woman who believed that the children were sin. And therefore, she would always give them a hard time and tell them that they're not worth anything and they're just there. They were the spawn of the devil. That's what she said to them. So in turn, the whole reason why the mother even came there in the first place was to visit her dying father so she could get the family fortune. But the only way she could do that is by doing the unthinkable. She basically brought her children there to kill them. She tried to poison them with rat poisoning. She gave them food, rat poisoning on it. And unfortunately, one of the kids did die, the youngest brother. So yeah, the mother had a motive just to kill off all her children to get the family fortune because her father did not know she had children, and nor would he have approved of it. It is a very sick and twisted plot for the movies. But now I'm going to get into both the adaptations. So I'm going to talk about the first one. Um, the 1987 film by Jeffrey Bloom. That adaptation was, in my opinion, much more dark and sinister, especially Olivia, the grandmother. She was this middle-aged woman who had a who had didn't have a nice bone in her body. She was real mean, stern individual. She would talk to the children in disgusting ways, and she would punish them by physical abuse, mental abuse, verbal abuse, anything you could think of. And if she caught the children doing something that wasn't to her liking or standards, they would get punished. Even they wouldn't get fed for weeks, and they would starve. As far as the mother goes, I think her development as a character in the movie was okay. Um, I think that she wasn't shown enough. She didn't have enough screen time in the actual film to show any development of the character. They kind of showed her, like, at one point a real loving, devoted mother, and then the next point she was a careless, um, just like a careless, carefree woman, and didn't even acknowledge her children. I just I thought something was left out there. Um, so basically, yeah, as the movie progresses, towards the end, their mother just says, I hate you. I don't want to know you. Get out of here, type of thing. She's like, she tried to tell her future husband that she doesn't have any kids, because if anyone found out, she'd be written out of the will. So as far as that goes, her character did not develop well. Now, the children, despite having the same issue, I would say, the acting was much better. You could tell there was a lot of emotion, and within the characters, you could see the dynamics of where they stood. I thought that portrayed, you know, great sympathy. You felt sorry for the children. And I'm not saying for the other version you feel sorry for them, but this felt deeper to me. They were very unique actors. And as far as the actual setting, the mansion they used, Foxworth Manor, it was absolutely a scary, scary place, which is what they were aiming for. I just thought the set was miraculous. It was dark, it was gothic, you had just this bad vibe over you. It wasn't a very pleasant vibe. Now, wrapping up the 1987 version, overall, I think it was a more disturbing and psychological movie than anything. Moving on to the 2014 adaptation. Now, this movie, I think, had more faults, and I'm explaining to you why. I'm going to start with the actual cast. Olivia, who was played in this version as a much older woman, as in the first one, she was more middle aged. She came off as more of just a grumpy old cat lady at best. She didn't really portray that, stern gothic figure as in the first one. She was more or less just a grumpy old woman. I don't think she was that intimidating. And to be honest, when she tried her best, she still was pretty pathetic at it. I'm not saying that she's a bad actress. I'm just saying that she was not right for the part. Now, this is the interesting thing, because now I'm gonna move on to the mother. What made her better in the remake was the character development. She had much more screen time than she did in the original, which showed her character development, because you didn't see her go from this nurturing mother to this psychopath. You saw in between. You saw what happened. You kind of figured it out. In the first one, you're kind of left wondering, how did that transition happen? Now, as far as the kids, I was a little disappointed. They weren't. I wasn't convinced that they were really, scared and didn't know what to do. It was not. It was more of a sense of like, when is this going to be over? Like, they weren't really trying to get out of there. The first one was much more intense by having that feeling of suspense and overall fear. This one was just more of a waiting game. I thought the actual play out of the 2014 version was much more drawn out, and it didn't really line up with everything. I think there were some parts missing, to be honest. The overall adaptation and storyline of the 2014 version was very poor. It goes all the way from down to the uh, kids to the grandmother. I just wasn't very impressed. I'm not saying that it was a terrible movie, but it just lacked some themes and attributes I would have liked. Now, moving on to the actual set and where it took place. Even though the Foxworth Hall in the 2014 version did look more modern and to me what would look like a mansion, it still didn't have that same dark feeling the first one did in 1987. To me, it felt cheaper. I think they spent less money on actual set. What I mean is, it wasn't out of the ordinary. It was your ordinary, newer style mansion. I just wasn't too thrilled with it. Now, I'm going to bring up something that I didn't bring up before. There's one big thing that the new one has over the old one. If you read the book Flowers in the Attic, which is by V.B. Andrews, the new one is more true to the book. But with that being said, being true to the book always doesn't mean it's better. Because the overall acting and the settings were subpar compared to the original. So, to be honest, I think that the remake shouldn't even existed because the original was good enough. Because books are allowed to be slightly different. It's just what you depict in your mind of what it is. So, in a nutshell, to weigh out the pros and cons, I would say the winner has to go to the old one. And I only say that because the setting was better, most of the characters were better, and the actual storyline made more sense. The only thing that I think really that stood out what the new one did better was the mother's character development. That's about it. Well, that has been my review on both the adaptations. I hope to make some more videos, and I hope to gain some subscribers, and I hope you guys follow this channel. I enjoyed making this video, and I just hope you guys will support me. I'm looking forward to making more content, and I'll see you guys soon. All right, bye.